All right. I went to the bathroom, some coffee. So I shut the cat and the dog up. um, so we're talking about how I had hit the pits, the black hole, and how what I'd read about all the mythology was starting to come out of my cerebral cortex, the brain, and I was having the experiences, and luckily I had read all this stuff and I knew that I wasn't the only one who understood this. Now I was who'd been through this, that this was part of the inner journey. The inner journey. The inner journey is filled with mythological stories out there. And it all happens inside. And you got to take the journey. At least I know I had to take the journey. I had to be, I had to die. I had to learn to die to come back, to be able to stay in this space. One of the reasons JOeY, the night that JOeY, evidently I found out later that the night that JOeY made his journey into the light, he was filled with anxiety at his apartment. I think there was this anxiousness, and he was drug-free. Body hadn't had drugs for quite a while, and he had had a special capsule that they had put into his abdomen to keep, if he had tried to take any drugs. This capsule had a specific ingredient in it that would keep the drugs from affecting him or keep him from being addicted. That was a program that they had him in to, to keep him from using anything even after the surgery. So there was this capsule in his abdomen that he was wearing, and it was sewed just underneath his skin, and it would emit a drug, a non-addictive drug, but it would block the receptors in his brain from anything he would take. So he couldn't take anything and get a high off of it, or deal with his anxiety from it. He had to learn to deal with his anxiety in other ways. And of course he didn't listen to me because I was mom, and I would tell him all kinds of ways to deal with his anxiety, but that, he was lonely and scared, and the world was very big all of a sudden without the drugs, and so he was at his apartment, and I guess he had an anxiety attack that night, and he had been depressed, I remember, for some reason, and I don't know why. I think he was in love with somebody, or she was far, far away, and he was very young. Remember, he was 23 in linear time. And he had called up that night one of his compatriots in the drug trade that knew, one of the people who used to give him things. And I guess the guy came over and gave him some barbiturates of some kind and alcohol, and told him, this'll fix you up, buddy. So JOeY took those, and his body, which not only had this capsule in it that was supposed to, offset all effects that this drug could have on him, plus the alcohol, it just decided to shut down, Just said, I can't handle this, and his heart stopped beating, and he fell asleep. I know it was very peaceful. It was extremely peaceful, his body, when I looked at it. It was very quiet, peaceful. I went to sleep, and then everything just stopped, and I was asleep. There was no pain or struggle, just chatting, fall asleep, let go. I knew that. Immediately when I saw him, there was complete peace about how he had let go. So in a sense, that was a blessing to know that. I know that now. It's a blessing. At the time, I didn't know it. But there I was, completely insane. And I got a phone call within a month, a couple weeks within the time period that JOeY had made his journey to the light and transitioned. I got a phone call from a woman I had known, and she's a very incredible woman. She lives out in California. And she said, you need to come to my house. You need to come see me because your son is here and he wants me to help you. And this is a woman I knew that had been born with the ability to see things that a lot of us don't see unless we're really intensely meditating, but she was born with it, the ability to see things and hear things and just no multidimensional entities would come to her. She knew, it was him. And she had never even met my son, and she didn't know he had crossed. She just said, get out here. Now, that was my first inclination that JOeY was, okay, or he was alive, very much so. Another thing that happened was JOeY was kind of screaming at me as I was painting the stars. He was screaming, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. I wasn't listening. In retrospect, I was grieving so deeply, it wasn't like didn't want to hear it, because I kept saying, oh no, that's just me saying that. I mean, he was screaming it. And I thought, all right, we'll see, if this is really JOeY. So I put on some earphones, and I was listening to some really beautiful Tibetan ringing bowls, this very light touch song, just Tibetan bowls. And I decided I would try automatic writing. I wanted to see if that worked. So I closed my eyes, and I was at my house, and I put a pen in my hand, and I closed my eyes. And one of the things that I realize now, I've always been really good at picking up energy and moving it through me to create out of my being form, which is why drawing and painting come so easily. When I paint a painting or draw a drawing of anything, I have the ability to feel it in three-dimensional form, even though I know it's on a two-dimension, it's on this like flat surface. If I'm drawing an arm or a hand, I can feel it inside as a three-dimensional form. That's a synesthesia of some kind that I have. So why not try the automatic writing? Because we really are dealing with frequency here, right? We really are dealing with the essence of what's going to come through if I go into a state of quiet stillness. So I did. I put a piece of paper on my lap, I took a pen, and I closed my eyes, and I felt my hand starting to move. It wasn't moving very much, but it felt like it was moving a lot. It felt like it was really writing hugely, but it was really, really writing tiny when I looked at it finally. But it felt like it was huge writing. And words came through over and over from JOeY, and they were really strong. Love, love, love. And he was like, had exclamation points behind them. God, 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 exclamation points behind that. Love, eternity, infinity, God, God, God. It was almost like he was a kid who just got to Disneyland, okay? It was God, 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 infinity, love, 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 screaming. So I felt with my eyes closed that I was writing these giant words, And when I looked down on the paper, I saw these really tiny scribbles. But the words were so strong that it felt like they were huge. And I was amazed. I was amazed that this essence of energy had come through me to write these things down. And to feel this, his essence telling me, love, 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 God, 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 infinity, infinity, and he kept drawing the infinity. I felt myself drawing this giant infinity sign constantly over and over. And yet when I look at the paper in 3D, there was tiny little scribbles. So, the words were coming through. It's just that, the limitedness of this dimension was making them very tiny. Then I, one day, was so sad, beyond, just so sad. And I said, what, where are you? Where are you? And God, I need you. I need you here. I can't do this. I can't stay here. I can't stay here. I just can't. I have to. And JOeY knew I was acting desperate, but so I said, I'll put the earphones on and I'll write some more. I'll let JOeY come through. And all of a sudden, all he said was 2 words, and it felt like they were like magnificently large, but of course on the paper they looked really small. Dad's here. I said, Dad's here. It was as clear as a bell. Dad's here. So there was this sudden lift inside of me that he was with his dad, and I knew it. And I remember calling a friend and screaming, oh my God, JOeY came through and let me know that Dad's here. And I was crying and crying and crying. So that's that story of JOeY really punching a hole. And he would. JOeY's essence is that, again, let's thinking in terms like Tesla said of the whole universe is just vibration, frequency, and wavelengths. All of this is, and you can pick up on anything you want. But I didn't know that as much back then. I'm learning it as I go. JOeY got through like gangbusters. I got through to my girlfriend out in California, and he has the essence of this like, man, Mom, you've got to listen. You've got to hear. You've got to unlimit yourself. Get rid of that egoic conditioning that you've got, that this isn't real. This is real. I am here and I am talking to you. So, okay, I had to get through a lot of that. Now the Isabel Allende story I'll tell, and then I'll finish the tape off and before I do another tape. But a couple weeks after JOeY made his journey into the light, I went to the desk drawer to pull out the picture. I found the picture that he had drawn of Isabel Allende. And JOeY must have known on a spiritual level, on a higher self level, that Mom's the kind of person who's going to go research this. She's not just going to toss it aside. So I said to myself, man, why would he do this? Even more so now, why would I be finding this? And what do I do with it? So I went to the computer and I typed Isabel Allende into Google, and I went to her website and found she has a website. And I thought, what the heck, I'm going to send her an email and I'm going to ask and tell her what happened. Tell her that my son had painted or drawn her picture, called her an angel, never in a million years would have read her book or anything, and why. So I wrote to her, Dear Ms. Allende, my son JOeY just recently transitioned into the light, passed on, stopped using his body, and for some reason he wanted to read your book. He didn't read it, but he drew this incredible picture of you, and I sent her the sketch, and I said, I have no idea why he kept calling you an angel, but I had no idea why he did any of this. Maybe you can enlighten me. Thank you. Regards, Marianne Brown. I expected nothing, from this. And that's the best way to go into these things, is with no expectations. But I didn't expect that she would write back. And she did the next day. I got an enormous email from her, herself, Isabella Lunde. So she wrote, Marianne, tell me more about your son. I need to know. I really need to know more about your son. That's absolutely incredible. And I want you to know that I too have had a child make that journey into the light. And I wrote a book about her. Her name was Paula. And she and I had such an experience together. I want to send you that book because I think it will help you. Her daughter was also JOeY's age. Her daughter was in a coma for over a year, and her mother wouldn't take her off life support. I did receive the book a week later with a little inscription inside from Isabella Lunde and a little flower on the jacket that said, Love, Isabel. To Marianne, Love, Isabel. And the book was all about her daughter taking her mother on a shared journey into the light to show her mother that she was not dead, and her mother had to take her off life support. Her mother was keeping her body on life support for about a year, and she needed to take her daughter off, and her daughter had to literally take her mother by the hand and take her in spirit into the light to show her where she was headed and to let her go. And Isabella Lunde wrote the book Paula to explain that journey she took with her own daughter and why her daughter wanted to let her mother know that her daughter was very much alive and needed to go into that home to the light rather than have her mother stay stuck by keeping her daughter on this life support. She had to literally grab her mother by the hand and take her on a shared journey into the light. That's what the book's about. JOeY knew, even before he, his spirit was running that show to get me to read that book. How else would I have known Isabella Lunde wrote a book named Paula? How else would I have ever picked up on that had he not done that sketch? He knew I was going to go research that. He knew I was going to write to Isabella Lunde, and he knew that I would get that book and it would help me a lot. And it did. It was one of the many things that helped me get through that time period, to understand that, number one, I wasn't alone, that people like Isabella Lunde had an understanding that their child was very much alive. And number two, that JOeY was working miracles even before he had left his physical form. He was aware at a very deep level of what I needed. He was already giving to me. I'm going to end this video with one thing he said to me. He said to me when he was here recuperating, he said, Mom, if you cross over, if you pass on, I'm going to feel really, really guilty about, how I treated you sometimes when I was on drugs. Would you do me a favor and not be angry with me? And I said, don't ever feel guilty about anything, And he said, well, where should I look for you if that happens to you? And I said, look for me everywhere. I'll be everywhere. I was so cocksure of myself at that time. Now I have to eat my own words. And I said, boy, now you gotta look for JOeY everywhere. But JOeY's making sure, and that's what the next videos are about, that mom's going to make sure she finds out there's no death. And he's fine, and so is Dad. And if anybody can come through like gangbusters, it's JOeY. So that'll be my next video. And thank you for listening to this one. I have a couple more to go.